Okay. Huh?
Cut it off.
I'm not shutting it off, officer.
Well, you going to jail.
Excuse me?
That happened 2 years ago in Jones County, Mississippi. The man behind the camera spent the night in jail. The police confiscated his camera, and they thought they erased the video, but as you saw, they didn't. It was recovered. What startles me watching it is that I just assumed that outdoors you can legally videotape a cop doing his public duty. Police officers have unusual power. They can arrest you, shoot you. I think it would be important to be allowed to have a video record. But in the last few years, in all these states, people have been threatened or detained or arrested after recording the police. Bradley Balco wrote a Reason magazine article about it. He joins me now. So, really locked up?
Yeah, locked up, threatened. Now, in most of these cases, the people aren't actually prosecuted. The charges tend to get dropped before these cases get to trial. And I think because the people prosecuting these cases and the people who make the laws don't want the laws to actually get challenged. But it's a night in jail. I mean, it's...
What does the arresting cop say?
Well, in states that have these two-party consent laws, they rely on the old wiretapping laws, and they're claiming that police officers...
We have a graphic of which those states are, and they do really impede reporting on government, these two-party states.
Well, and then the claim is that police officers have a right to privacy while they're on the job, in public, exercising, let's face it, some pretty powerful responsibilities that we give them. I think that claim is ridiculous, but that's usually the charge. Now, they also say you're interfering with arrest or you're refusing to obey a lawful order if they tell you to turn the camera off and you don't. And I think those arrests are wrong as well.
How does it interfere with the arrest? You're just recording the arrest.
Well, it only interferes with the arrest if the police officer is bothered by the fact that you're recording him, and it's a ridiculous argument. But here's the thing. I mean, you may not go to jail for these charges, but they're going to take your camera. They're going to arrest you. You're going to be handcuffed. You're going to be put in the back of a squad car. And nothing is going to happen to the police officers who illegally arrest you. Usually.
What, nothing? Even when they don't get reprimanded, suspended?
Well, in the Mississippi case, the video that you just showed, the police officers deleted evidence in that criminal case. They destroyed evidence.
And nothing happened to them for that?
And nothing happened to them. No investigation, nothing.
Here's one more case. In Maryland, motorcyclist Tony Graber got in trouble for taping a cop who pulled him over for speeding. Here's the clip.
Get off motorcycle. Get off the motorcycle. Get off the motorcycle. State police. See your hands. Put your hands up.
Now, that was a little scary because it wasn't obviously a cop. It was just a guy with a gun. He did then say he was with the police. What happened?
Well, in this case, Tony Graber didn't get arrested until he posted that video on YouTube. And once he posted it on YouTube, the state police, they raided his home. They came into his home early in the morning, guns drawn, confiscated a bunch of computer equipment, held him and his parents at gunpoint, arrested him. He spent several nights in jail. And he had felony charges hanging over his head for several months until the case finally got to court. And then a state judge in Maryland actually threw out the charges in a really strongly worded opinion.
Yeah, here's what he said. Those of us who are public officials and are entrusted with the power of the state should not expect our actions to be shielded from public observation. Sed qui custodiet, I'm not going to try to do the Latin, but he ended with saying, who watches the watchman, which is something Plato asked. And it's a good question because these guys have big powers. I'm stunned that they can just do this, and they went in this guy's home. Nothing happened to them?
Well, that's really the double standard here, right? The prosecutor who charged him, the cops who raided him and arrested him, they were all wrong about the law and did real harm to him, and none of them are going to suffer any consequences at all. And I think that's really what the double standard is here.
Now, one good thing about the new technology is it's never been easier to keep an eye on the cops.
Yeah.
I mean, my cell phone has a camera here, and
well, mine does too. And I'll just show you how easy this is. And I really think this technology is incredibly powerful as well as easy. Let's just get this rolling here. So right now, I'm recording this. So I'm recording us chatting right now. And as I'm recording my conversation with you, this is actually live streaming up to a website called QIK.com. And not only is it streaming on that website, it's also being archived on Kik's servers. So, John, if you were offended by my recording this conversation and your security detail were to rough me up,
confiscate the phone,
and you throw the phone against the wall or stomp on it and break it, this video is now stored off-site and it's safe and it can't be tampered with. Now, this is an extraordinary piece of technology. I mean, this is I don't think it's an overstatement to say it. I mean, this is revolutionary in terms of holding government officials accountable, not just police officers, but I mean, we saw this in Iran when the Iranian Revolution a couple summers ago. We saw these videos coming out of the government cracking down on these protesters, and these videos were getting sent up to satellites and beamed all over the world before the government could do anything about it. There's George Orwell has a famous saying, he says, if you want to envision the future of humanity, imagine a boot stepping on a human face forever, right? A very sort of pessimistic view of government.
Yes.
But, I think he's probably still right, but now there's probably someone who's going to be around with a cell phone camera to take a video and post it on YouTube. And really, I mean, transparency is, I think, half the battle.
This little thing is a weapon against tyranny.
It is. It absolutely is. And I think we should, I mean, not only should we sort of celebrate that technology, that we have this huge weapon against tyranny in our pockets, but we need to make sure that the laws protect the way we use it and that ensure that we can continue to use it that way.
But Jim Pascoe of the Fraternal Order of Police says we have to put some faith and trust in our authority figures. And it has a chilling effect, camera, on officers who are now afraid to act for fear of retribution by video.
I mean, I think if you're a police officer and you're carrying a gun and a badge, you're holding yourself up to sort of a higher level of accountability. And if you're doing your job right, you shouldn't have anything to fear from citizens having video. It will probably help you more than it'll hurt you.
And here's one example that happened just right outside the studio. A policeman charged a bicyclist with attempted assault. He claimed that the bicyclist just rode into him on purpose. But then this video turned up. Clearly not on purpose. What happened there?
I mean, in this case, the police officer lost his job. I think that's probably a good thing.
Me too. One last case. In Washington, D.C., a police officer got angry when he drove past a snowball fight and his car was hit with snowballs.
Throw another snowball. Get back up on the curb.
He denied that he ever drew his gun. The department backed him until this video appeared. What happened then?
Well, I mean, this case really illustrates how powerful these citizen-shot videos are. In this case, the D.C. Police Department continued to say that there was no gun drawn well after this video was on YouTube and had spread all over Twitter. But this video clearly shows he did have his gun drawn, and the officer ended up getting, I think he got a 10 or 20-day suspension. But, this is why this technology is so powerful. Until now, until everybody had these cameras in their pockets, the police narrative was the official narrative. That's the only narrative we had. And now we can challenge that narrative.
I assume usually they tell the truth, but it's good that we have cameras. Thank you, Radley Balco. Next, if you're a college student who gets bad grades or is caught with drugs, you have a right to keep that secret from your parents? Yes, maybe. More on privacy versus secrecy when we come back. Do you adults have a right to keep your medical history private? I think so, but what's an adult? Once you're 18, because that's when you can serve in the Army. But a lot of 18-year-olds and 21-year-olds are in college. Often their parents pay for the college. So what if the college catches them using heroin? Should the college tell the parents? No, says Congress. Federal law says a college can only release such records or a student's grades if the student signs a waiver allowing that. Tony Chris says that's a terrible law. And Tony, you say that partly because of what happened to your son. What happened?
John, let's just cut to the chase. I'm not a TV person. I've never been on TV. We came on because we don't want anyone to experience what we experienced. We lost our only son, Brian, to a hideous addiction on heroin, and we learned that the college had knowledge of his alcohol problem as early as his freshman year and of suspicion of drugs. And the last entry in his college records, John, was Brian came in worried that he had an infection, and he had been shooting heroin, and we sent him to the hospital. And never once did they think of calling the parents. Now,
and if they had called you, what would you have done?
Well, I mean, what would you have done, John, if you were told your son was down at college using heroin? I mean, we didn't send our kid to one of the better universities in the nation.
This was the University of Virginia.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter what university. It's all over the campuses, John. It's federal law underpinning these universities that needs to be changed, and specifically the law that extends privacy out to kids that are practicing destructive and addictive behaviors needs to go.
Well, one reason for the law is supposedly to protect the kids, to help them. They'd be more willing to tell the school counselor about something if they knew it wasn't going to go home to mommy and daddy.
John, unfortunately, there are kids on campus that don't go to the school counselor. Cho at UVA is an example. His mother famously said in the local papers, I call him every Sunday, and he said nothing was wrong. And if I only knew what was in the Virginia Tech records for 2 years, I would have withdrawn him from campus. Now that would.
This is the young man who shot
Virginia Tech that killed 32 people. Now Brian wouldn't have hurt a fly, my son, but when a dependent student is practicing addictive or destructive behaviors and they rise to the level that the administration's aware, call the parents. I mean, how expensive is that?
Well, already the law allows the school, if they feel that the child is a threat to himself or others, to tell the parents, but they must not have known that about Brian.
Our family physician knew and didn't tell us. And when he died,
the school and the physician. Well, so it doesn't sound like it's the school's fault, and he spent time at home with you.
Well, that's why I didn't want to make an issue of UVA. It's bad federal law, John. Wouldn't you want to know if your kid was having trouble on campus? Wouldn't you want to call? I mean, how hard is that? When the head of the electrical engineering department tearfully came up to me and said, Mr. Christ, we can't call the families. When we went down to get his degree posthumously, when we went down to get Brian's degree, that underscores the whole problem. The federal law needs to go. We don't mean to replace it with additional laws. We just want to return to the period.
You want colleges to be forced to notify parents.
John, look, for 190 years, it was an automatic thing. An adult was an adult. It took 30 years of legislative, federal legislation to dumb that down so that teachers today aren't allowed to be adults, and the kids are losing for it. We just want to return to that period when adults are adults, and that means eliminating intrusive federal laws.
And forcing the college to notify the parents. I mean, when I was at Princeton, I got drunk once and ran through the storm sewers, and they reported it to my parents, to my horror.
There was a parent figure around. Today it's absent, and it's not like these professors are overworked. My God, they only teach 2 courses a week.
It's not about overwork. It's about privacy rights for the student. What if the student's paying his own tuition?
John, there is no privacy. Do you know that everyone in Brian's room knew what he was doing? The only 2 people who would have been there instantly and devoted all the time you could imagine were prevented from knowing. Everyone else already knew. Privacy's a myth.
Well, thank you, Tony Christ. I'm sorry for what happened to Brian. I'm not thrilled that your law would force colleges to report it to parents, but I hope you can get it repealed, the law that forbids them to report.
I know, it's just a shame.
Coming up, my pregnancy. I bet you didn't know about that. These 2 words have similar meanings, yet they imply very different things. Privacy is good. We all want our privacy protected. Secrecy suggests something bad. It's interesting how the mainstream media apply the words. When the Washington Post had trouble getting the names of people who'd gotten guns, it said the names were secrecy that needed to be penetrated. Of course, gun owners said their privacy was being violated. Which it is depends on your point of view. I love the stings that James O'Keefe pulled off, but the hidden cameras still creep me out. I have enemies. What if they record me at a doctor's office or just saying something stupid on the street? Do I have to be on guard all the time? Maybe, because the cameras keep getting smaller. We all know about the cell phone cameras that everybody has, but now you can buy cameras that are in wristwatches or in eyeglasses or in keychains even. Look at this one. Looks like a keychain, but there's a camera in here. This is cute, but it's threatening. Now, I've won awards doing undercover reporting. Sometimes our hidden cameras revealed the truth. I'd confront the merchant. Would you ever cheat people by doing this or that? And they'd say, no, never. And I could say, oh, yeah? Well, watch this and play the video. It was great TV, and the people deserved exposing. Once we heard that some doctors, some abortion doctors, were so greedy and deceitful that they tell women who were not pregnant that they were and then give them pretend abortions. This was before home pregnancy tests. So I had a woman bring in my urine for the test. We recorded the doctors because we thought you just might not believe it if you didn't hear their words. And CBS promoted the story. The doctors were caught. They closed their practice. Good. And yet, I'm not sure I would use the hidden tape recorder if I did that story today. Today, some lawyers specialize in suing TV stations that use hidden cameras. One told us it's $1 million decision every time you do it. My abortion doctor sting involved taping inside a doctor's private office. That's especially risky. Juries don't like the invasion of privacy. And 12 states have laws that just make it illegal. For example, in Baltimore, I once investigated a doctor who claimed that lots of people were being poisoned by chemicals that are all around us. I thought she was a quack who was ripping off the state. But she told the police that we'd secretly taped her. In Maryland, that's illegal. Bingo, I was charged with a felony and threatened with years in jail. They eventually dropped the charge, and we had not secretly taped her. But I wish we could have. She's still in business. It made me think about Spiro Agnew, President Nixon's vice president, who was forced to resign after it was revealed that he took bribes when he was a county executive. He was from Maryland, too. Is there more political corruption in states where reporters may not use secret taping? Maybe. Around the time Agnew was exposed, a slew of other Maryland politicians were caught in corruption scandals. One governor, 2 county executives, a congressman, the Speaker of the State House, and a U.S. senator. That's why I'm glad that James O'Keefe does his stings. Private individuals deserve privacy, but people who get your tax money deserve less. And government officials who have the right to use physical force against others deserve still less. So hooray for the cameras. They capture dirty truths that otherwise stay hidden. And when it's public money, the public deserves to know. That's our show tonight. I'm John Stossel. Good night.